Welcome! This presentation was prepared under the Erasmus Plus project Food Allergens Risk Management for Food Safety, funded by the European Union. The aim of this project is to improve the knowledge on food allergens in general and examine ways of food allergens risk management. The means to this goal is through 4 different training modules prepared by all project partners. So, Module 2 is a guide to managing food allergens in collective consumption businesses. Let us begin with some general information on food allergens. Food allergens affect a number of groups, starting from simple consumers suffering from food allergies and those attending to people with food allergies, businesses in direct connection to the food industry, and competent authorities. Due to the fact that the percentage of the population affected by food allergens is substantial and at the same time the health burden is increasing, food businesses are expected to take all the necessary steps in order to state any potential presence of allergenic ingredients, minimize the risk of allergen presence, and where and if possible prevent unintentional allergenic presence. Once the issue of food allergens presence is identified, all the necessary measures in order to address it are to be taken into consideration, meaning that allergen management practices ought to be applied along with good hygiene practices, and furthermore in businesses such as retail and food services, hazard analysis critical control point systems. The objective of this module is to act as a guide to food business operators, primary producers included, in order for them to create all necessary control procedures in all the areas of the business and as a next step apply them as part of their allergen management practices, aiming to prevent or minimize the potential for allergen cross-contact, prevent or minimize the potential for undeclared allergens being present in a food due to errors arising in the supply chain, ensure the correct allergen label is applied to prepackaged foods, and ensure that accurate information can be provided to consumers at point of sale when the food is not prepackaged. This module aims to act prior to a hazard being detected as a proactive approach under the business's management. Changes to any process within a food production facility or introduction of a new material or product can affect allergen cross-contact risks for other products manufactured at the same site. Figure 1 illustrates the critical elements that must be considered in assessing allergen risks in a food manufacturing environment. Food allergy. The term food allergy is a subcategory of an allergic reaction which is due to various foods and in which immune mechanisms have been proven either IgE and/or non-IgE induced. In Figure 2, you may see the food hypersensitivity classification. Food hypersensitivity, which includes food allergy and intolerance, is an adverse reaction to food causing unpleasant and sometimes life-threatening symptoms. This document has been structured to outline the principles of food allergen management in all relevant areas of application. To ensure food safety, it is necessary to consider all aspects of the food production chain as a continuum, from primary production to the sale or distribution of food to the consumer, because each element has a potential impact on the final product. In this slide, we saw what should be addressed during primary production. Regarding the growing area, in order to ensure the non-allergenic identity of the final products, growers should consider the crops previously planted prior to their crop or the ones in close proximity. Additionally, all machinery used should be assessed to prevent cross-contact. Regarding the handling area, there should be proper inspection of the equipment that will be used in harvesting, and all commodities cleaned thoroughly with various methods. Regarding the storage area, all premises that contain different types of commodities should be inspected and cleaned. Physical segregations need to be in place for commodities like seeds. When means to carry the commodities are required, like bags, those used for allergenic types should be cleaned and marked to stand out. Regarding the transport, transportation containers and vehicles should be cleaned from previous loads. When unloading, containers used for transporting allergenic commodities should be carefully cleaned. Facilities design. Proper facility layout and design can help reduce the risk of allergen contamination in a food manufacturing facility. The design, layout, construction, and dimensions of the establishment should prevent allergen cross-contact. Special consideration should be given to the delimitation and isolation of areas, location of equipment, process flow, personnel movement, and ventilation systems. Allergen cross-contact of ingredients, in-process materials, and final product can be minimized by utilizing dedicated facilities, processing and packaging lines, and equipment. Establishment and equipment details. Food business operators handling allergenic products should, if possible, contain all processes involving those products at one location. Of course, this might not be applicable, especially when it comes to small businesses. In this case, traffic patterns should be designed in the facility to prevent allergen cross-contact. The production could be split timely or in space. Also, effective cleaning must be applied as in all areas of the facility. The same principle applies in the manufacturing area. When the same equipment is used for multiple allergenic products, if possible, processing lines should be designed to be dedicated to the production of allergenic food. In case this is not feasible, then again there should be a sequence in the production in a timely manner. Consideration should be made in the configuration of processing lines with sufficient space or physical barriers between them to minimize any allergen cross-contact as a result of normal product spillage and splattering from processing or cleaning. Also, shielding, permanent and/or temporary partitions, covers, and cut spans should be provided to protect exposed, unpacked products as necessary. In retail, staff should use dedicated color-coded equipment, tools, employee apparel, and utensils for handling allergen-containing ingredients or finished products when possible. In general, there should be dedicated production areas for food with allergenic ingredients if possible. In the case of handling products in a powder form, like milk powder, extra attention should be given to ventilation system to prevent airborne allergen particulate matter from being brought into allergen-free zones. Additionally, allergenic ingredients should be stored separately from non-allergenic ones. Staff in manufacturing areas should have the possibility to apply appropriate barriers or adequate separation between lines when necessary to prevent or minimize allergen cross-contact when foods with different allergen profiles are processed at the same time. With the increasing health burden posed by food allergens comes the expectation that food business operators take steps to accurately declare the presence of allergenic ingredients, minimize the risk from, and where possible, prevent unintended allergen presence, and that competent authorities provide guidance and oversight where necessary to food business operators on food allergen complaint investigations. In a global market, it is crucial that there is harmonized understanding of this issue and of the measures required to address it. Allergen management practices should be part of good hygiene practices and, where appropriate, hazard analysis critical control point systems in manufacturing, retail, and food service. Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point is an internationally recognized food safety management system that aims to identify and then evaluate and control all potential hazards to food coming from the business-related activities. Its applications begin from the receipt of the raw materials, their storage, the production stages, to the distribution of ending to the final products at the points of sale or to the consumers, depending on the type of the business. As we have already mentioned, the unintentional presence of allergens in food is prevented or minimized by taking preventive measures through good hygiene practices and hazard analysis critical control point-based controls at appropriate stages in the operation. In this chapter, we are going to present the basic elements of hygiene control systems. The first area of application is during processing. When producing food, allergen control should prevent as much duplication as possible between allergen-containing and non-allergenic products. When available, allergen-free products should be operated on a separate production line where no allergen-containing ingredients are imported. If an allergen-free line is located near an allergen-containing line, natural barriers should be created to separate them, and separate ventilation systems may be appropriate to prevent cross-border contact with air. Where separate lines are not possible, variations should be kept to a minimum. Disinfection should be scheduled immediately after the completion of a procedure containing allergens. In addition to segregated product lines, you can minimize the risk of cross-contact with reasonable employee and equipment controls. For example, containers and tools used to manage an allergen-containing ingredient should be clearly labeled and easily identified. Consider a colored handle for anything that comes in contact with peanuts, for example. Employees working on products containing allergens should be restricted from processing non-allergenic products. When this is not possible, additional disinfection should be carried out between routes, including changing uniforms, clothespins, etc. Allergen-free clothing should be of a different color from that worn when processing products containing allergens. Food preparation at retail is unlike manufacturing environments. Often, multiple items containing various major allergens are being prepared at the same time in a confined area. Preparation processes should be developed in the most efficient way in order to prevent cross-contact. This is achieved by the use of dedicated utensils and equipment for food with allergenic profile. When possible, one staff member is assigned responsible to prepare allergenic food. If not, then staff should apply all cleaning procedures between the meal preparations. All containers and tools used for allergen content should be unique for specific allergens, and if not, they must be cleaned thoroughly between transfers. Additionally, they should be labeled correctly in a way that stands out for each allergen. Cooking media, such as oil or water, should be dedicated to allergenic food cooking. Allergenic food in display for purchase should be placed in a safe distance from all other food. Staff responsible for handling products at purchase should have all the required knowledge regarding the allergenic ingredients in the business's products. The control of allergens cross-contact during rework or work in progress must be part of the allergen control plan. Allergen-containing ingredients should be stored as close as possible to the allergen-containing production line to minimize cross-contact with other products. Moreover, the rework should be properly labeled with all allergens highlighted and inventoried and accounted during storage. Workers should not go from one line to another without proper remediation procedures. The next area of application is the labeling of products. Food business operators should implement all necessary procedures to ensure that allergen information and labels are accurate and verify that the correct product labels are used on the production line when packaging or labeling products. This should be achieved through manual checks and automated checks. The storage procedures of labels and labeled containers must be in a way that minimizes the potential to place incorrect ones during the production process. When reaching the end of the production run, all labels and labeled containers should be returned to the designated storage areas. In case of products being mislabeled, there should be procedures in order to segregate and relabel them. If it is not possible to relabel such food, procedures to destroy the food should be available. In the retail area, food businesses should implement procedures to ensure that product labels are accurate and the correct product labels are provided when packaging or labeling products, that is often at the point of purchase. When developing allergen control plans, food businesses need to consider the procedures, practices, and processes in order to control food allergens to prevent allergen co-infection. This begins with the formation of an allergen management control team or a person in charge to lead the actions. The team should be aware of the components and products in the installation, the processes involved, and the hygiene requirements for the equipment. They should be encouraged to propose alternative procedures to prevent cross-contamination and to review or analyze existing procedures to ensure maximum efficiency. In the retail area, assigned supervisors should often make control checks to make sure all staff are following the precautionary procedures established to minimize cross-contact. The next area of application of control systems is when changes are introduced in a product's development. The first step when it comes to the introduction of a new product in processing is to consider whether the possibility of replacing the allergenic product with a non-allergenic is feasible without altering the final product's functionality. In case the new allergens entry is unavoidable to the manufacturing processes, there should be extra caution to avoid cross-contact with existing products, and also all existing procedures should be reviewed taking into consideration the addition. All labeling relevant to the new ingredient should be updated, and customers should be notified regarding the new final product and its allergenic profile for an appropriate amount of time. In the retail area, staff that handle food that has been altered with the addition of a new allergenic ingredient must be informed in a timely manner due to the fact that they are the ones in direct contact with the consumer. A food operator at any point in the supply chain can only perform his own risk assessment effectively if he is in possession of correct information about the complete allergen status of the raw materials and ingredients used. This requires knowledge of each supplier's understanding and application of allergen management. When it comes to allergens and other risks, a good relationship between raw material suppliers and manufacturers promotes good product safety. The entry of raw materials is among the main sources of contamination of the business. The good quality and ensuring the hygiene of the raw materials received and imported in a food business is the responsibility of the recipient. The delivery of safe raw materials begins with the careful selection of suppliers. Operators must plan deliveries in such a way as to ensure the proper and orderly handling of the products. Employees responsible for receipts should be trained to be able to inspect products and distinguish what is acceptable and unacceptable. They should also be empowered to reject products that do not meet the business's requirements and sign for products that meet them and are accepted upon delivery. The products that arrive at the establishment should comply with the agreed specifications. The packaging must be clean and intact. Also, tags and dates should be up to date. Prior to ordering, shortages of raw materials must be identified, warehouse space must be checked, and staff must be available for rapid unloading on the day of the delivery. In fact, delivery is the first stage of food preparation, which is coming to the company for the first time and exposed to its own conditions, to its own premises, and is handled by its staff. Packaging. Incorrect packaging or labeling is a major cause of allergen-related product recalls. In order to ensure the allergens are correctly declared on the label, controls should be in place to review and approve their accuracy. Procedures for checking that the correct labels are applied to products should be implemented and audited regularly so that accurate information is provided to allergic consumers. Water. Water used for washing or cooking and has previously come in contact with food containing allergens should not be used on food that does not contain any allergen. Supervision. Training employees who handle food constitutes the basis for success. Employees must understand the importance of taking immediate action if contamination is suspected. Procedures for control and prevention of contamination must be visible or readily available for all employees in premises where food handling occurs. The necessary handling and supervision procedures should be included in businesses' self-monitoring systems in order to ensure that foods meet the legal requirements. Significant factors in a quality system like this is a well-thought-out hazard analysis and procedures for training in hygiene and allergy issues as well as labeling products. Documentation. Efficient and accurate record keeping is critical to the application of allergen management within a food safety program. A simple record keeping system can be effective and easily communicated to employees. It should be integrated into existing operations using existing paperwork such as delivery invoices and checklists to record allergen status. Actions must be taken to ensure the prevention of allergenic presence in the product, and if somehow an incident occurs, all necessary steps must be taken to make sure it does not happen again. Therefore, food business operators should have in place procedures for dealing with consumer complaints in reference to undeclared allergens. The complaint should be examined and action should be taken. Those include changes in procedures like manufacturing or even recall of product. Maintenance and sanitation. Appropriate maintenance and cleaning procedures are more than essential for preventing allergen cross-contact in a facility processing food, particularly when allergen-containing and non-allergen-containing foods or foods with different allergen-containing components are manufactured on the same processing lines. Cleaning is also essential for preventing transfer of allergens from soiled containers, utensils, employee apparel, and tools into food products. Cleaning procedures may be important when targeting microbial hazards, but not adequate when it comes to allergen removal or protection from cross-contact. As a result, each food business should assess their cleaning and sanitation applications so as to ensure that they are effective in the allergens presence prevention. An allergen cleaning program must be applied in order to remove allergens from areas of processing, packaging, various areas that come in contact with the food, storage, employees' facilities, etc. Effective cleaning is one of the most important aspects of any allergen management strategy. Adequate procedures should be in place in areas of the business. During manufacturing, all equipment and preparation areas must be cleaned between food preparations that acquire different allergenic profiles. Inspect and remove any hand tools and utensils if they are damaged and not easily cleanable. Where feasible and appropriate, consider dedicated tools for specific equipment, and label or color code maintenance tools to correspond with specific allergens. Different cleaning procedures and also equipment that will be used for cleaning should be applied, varying on the type of the food residues. In more details, when wet cleaning is required, the water hoses should be used with low pressure in order to avoid spreading allergenic residues. On the other hand, when dry cleaning is the best option for cleaning, air-compressed equipment should be avoided for cleaning due to possible dispersion, and therefore alternative equipment may be used, such as brushes. Containers used for maintaining ingredients for the food under preparation that might contain food allergens should be cleaned right after its content finishes. In general, when using ingredients with allergenic profile, it would be best if a new designated cleaning procedure is applied rather than one used for previous food preparations to prevent cross-contamination. An essential parameter of any adequate allergen control program is the validation of a cleaning protocol. The term cleaning validation refers to the process of assuring that an applied cleaning procedure is effective in the removal of allergenic food from food processing lines and equipment. Validation protocols must be in place in order to validate the cleaning efficacy regarding allergens and to provide feedback to the business for the cleaning protocol with areas being insufficiently cleaned. Cleaning programs should be developed and validated before commercial manufacture of a product begins, and any time changes are made to the manufacturing and cleaning process. As for the validation procedures, those may involve visual inspection of equipment surfaces, analysis of finished product and in-process materials, final rinse water, and diagnostic swab samples, or a combination of these items. Confidence in the efficacy of the allergen cleaning protocol is increased when validation studies are performed several times each year. Once the steps of the cleaning process and the validation and verification procedures are identified and optimized, the entire process should be fully documented and incorporated into an allergen cleaning program. Pest control systems. Pests, like birds, pose a major threat to the safety and suitability of food. Food-related businesses must have control systems and inform pest control service providers of concerns about the use of allergenic food as bait in traps. Waste management. Food business operators should handle waste containing allergens in a way that minimizes the allergens cross-contact. Separate covered containers should be used. Personal hygiene practices on premises. Ensuring good hygiene is far more important in the preparation of allergen-free products than ordinary products. Food consumption businesses must have master sanitation schedule in place, specially designed to mitigate this dangerous hazard. The cleaning practices in place must consider their purpose, that is the hazard they are set for to eliminate. In the manufacturing area, the staff's hands are in direct contact with food and thus are the means to cross contact. It is very important that staff hands are always clean. Hand washing must be done properly and not casually or hastily. Food handlers must wear special protective clothing if necessary to prevent contamination of food from their daily clothes. The work uniform should be designed to protect food from possible contamination, be related to the wearer's work, and include an apron, blouse, or uniform depending on the requirements of the workplace. It should also include a hat or cap that adequately covers the scalp. Boots or special shoes are also recommended as appropriate. Moreover, staff should not be permitted to bring food or drink into areas where product, ingredients, or primary packaging is exposed, as these foods may contain allergens and result in allergen cross-contact. In case separate premises are not feasible, sufficient cleaning between different stages of work must be ensured. Cleanup following the processing of an allergen-containing product is essential. Equipment may need to be disassembled and manually cleaned to ensure hard-to-clean areas are free of allergen residue. All equipment shall be cleaned especially between formulation changes. Once appropriate procedures for cleaning are established, a checklist may be utilized to verify systems are clean and inspected. In the retail and services area, proper food management should not stop after the end of its preparation or cooking. In order for a food to be served safely, it must be protected from contamination until it is consumed. The use of clean and disinfected utensils and tools, and the avoidance of direct contact with ready-to-eat food and bare hands prevent cross-contamination. It is important that employees follow the rules of good personal hygiene and are properly trained to avoid contamination in customer service. As also customers can contaminate food, especially when served alone from a buffet, precautions should be taken to avoid possible contamination. Finally, special precautions are required in cases of distribution or disposal of food away from the preparation area. Transportation. As already mentioned, cross-contamination is one of the key principles when it comes to allergen management. The fact is that the allergen's presence in the final product does not come from raw materials alone. This especially applies during transport, storage, and handling of all materials. The hygiene aspect of food transport has become an issue for European transport operators. This development started roughly in 1990 when national governments urged transport operators to act on food safety. However, nowadays, retailers and food producers are demanding more hygiene measures from transport operators. Therefore, caution must be taken during transport, storage, and handling of raw materials for potential cross-contamination. Cross-contamination is more likely to occur during transportation than storage. Transportation arrangements are to be made in such a way that products with incompatible allergen profiles are transported separately. In case this is not applicable, in order to minimize the risk of cross-contamination, one should consider adding layers for extra protection to the non-allergenic products. Good communication between shipper, manufacturer, transporter and receiver of foods is essential since they share responsibility for food safety in this part of the food chain. Food manufacturers or receivers are responsible for communicating to transporters specific food safety control procedures required during transportation, with special instruction when there is a likelihood of allergen cross-contact. Furthermore, the food transportation vehicles and associated transport receptacles should be suitably designed and constructed to facilitate inspection and cleaning. Finally, the transporters should demonstrate a clear understanding of the food they carry and ensure personnel can identify and understand the potential allergen cross-contamination situations. In every food supply chain, there are at least a few, but usually dozens of transport steps. These transport steps can differ greatly in duration, conditioning, and type of food product. Consequently, all these transports would have their own food safety profile. Vehicles designed to transport liquids, like for instance milk, must be adequately cleaned between loads so that allergen cross-contact is minimized. Depending on the nature of the cargo, in some cases, it might be best to have dedicated tankers. In order to be thorough, all food transportation vehicles and loading carrying areas must be regularly inspected and, if necessary, cleaned to remove any residue of the previous load before reloading. Once more, depending on the nature of the load, a different method of cleaning should be adopted. For commercial scale haulage, a record should be made when a vehicle has been inspected, even if cleaning is not needed. In case of an incident during loading, transportation or unloading which could result in allergen cross-contamination, the circumstances should be reported to the cargo owner or the customer for their consideration and most importantly for them in order to advise if specific measures are needed. Finally, once appropriate procedures for cleaning are established, a checklist may be utilized to verify systems are clean and inspected. Labeling and consumer information. In order to ensure that consumers suffering from food allergies are able to avoid allergenic foods and ingredients, food business operators should provide adequate and correct information on the allergenic nature of a food. Additionally, the food business operator is enabled towards the proper handling, storing, preparation, and display of the product in a safe and corrective way. Effective identification strategies, such as lot identification, should be in place in order to assist in stock rotation and in case of product recall. Each food container should be marked to identify the producer and the lot number. In order to enable the recall of affected products, if necessary, a traceability product tracing system should be designed and applied. In order to ensure clear and uniform understanding, allergenic ingredients must be declared with clear reference to the allergen present. Pre-packed food ought to have an ingredients list. In case of an allergen present in the product, this must be somehow pointed out, listed in bold, by using contrasting colors or by underlining it. Allergen advice statements can also be used on the product label to explain how allergen information is presented. For alcoholic drinks with no ingredients list, allergens can be indicated by the word contains followed by the name of the allergen. In case of possible risk of a food product being affected by allergen cross-contamination, the label should include may contain X, or not suitable for someone with X allergy. Precautionary allergen labeling should only be used after a thorough risk assessment. It should only be used if the risk of allergen cross-contamination is real and cannot be removed. Free from food are special ranges of foods made without allergens. If a label states that your product is free from X or X-free, it has to be based on specific and rigorous controls. These controls need to ensure that the final product is completely free of the particular allergen. There is one exception to this rule, which is gluten. Gluten-free labeled products can contain a maximum of 20 mg per kilogram of gluten. In the manufacturing area, the starting point for all food production is that a complete record of product specifications is made available. In product development procedures, the ingredients and manufacturing processes must be assessed from an allergen point of view. The staff responsible for the development of products and recipes must have sound knowledge of the risks to people with food allergies and other food intolerance. In general, in the retail and services area, as already mentioned, all food products and ingredients should be accompanied by or bear adequate information in order to ensure customers are aware whether food is or contains or may contain an allergen. In collective consumption food businesses, all allergen information, both in premises and online, should be up to date and accurate. Following the same rules, retail operations should provide up-to-date and full information of any allergens presence in all prepackaged products through labeling and also online. Staff assigned to serve food should be familiar with allergens in all menu items and also with the preparation practices adopted by the food business that may cause allergen cross-contact to the meal. Additionally, there should be proper signage, both within menus and in the entry of the business, in order to raise allergen awareness to customers. In the case where staff cannot confirm 100% that the food does not contain an allergen, this information must be clearly communicated to the consumer. Lastly, in self-serve areas, consumers may transfer allergens to non-allergenic products by mishandling unpackaged food products. Therefore, in this case, notification should be made on the likelihood of an allergy due to cross-contact. Food business operators indicate the ingredients or products causing allergies or intolerances through labeling, which is a very important tool for risk management and communication. According to the legislation in the European Union, substances or products that cause allergies or intolerances are required to be declared for prepackaged and non-prepackaged foods unless the derivatives are specifically exempted by the legislation. Regarding prepackaged food, the information must be attached on the package itself or on a label to it. In the case of non-prepackaged food, Member States may adopt national measures applied in their country for the way and form through which the allergen information is available. In any case, labeling ingredients, processing aids, substances or products that cause allergies or intolerances is mandatory when they are used in the preparation of a food and therefore are present in the final product. In general, according to the general standard for the labeling of prepackaged foods that applies in the European Union countries, the following information should appear on the label of all prepackaged food as applicable to the food being labeled. The name of the food, net contents and drained weight, name and address, instructions for use, list of ingredients, country of origin, lot identification, and date marking and storage instructions. Additionally, mandatory requirements are also quantitative ingredients declaration and irradiated foods. Training. Personnel actively engaged in certain food sectors should get appropriate training so that it can meet the requirements to produce safe food and the control of documents and records substantiating the maintenance of the system. Training is fundamentally important to any food hygiene related system and the competence of their staff. Adequate hygiene training or instruction and supervision of all personnel involved in food-related activities has a major contribution to providing safe and suitable for consumption food. All staff, including temporary hired and maintenance-related staff, involved in all areas interconnected to food production, manufacturing, preparation, handling, distribution, retail and service, should firstly comprehend their role in the allergen management system and be at any time up to date with all aspects of its implementation. Through appropriate training, participants are going to understand the basic principles and good practices for the management of allergens in food-related businesses, as well as the factors that may affect the presence of allergenic ingredients in food. Upon completion, participants will be equipped with the knowledge of how to manage allergens, the basic legislation on allergens, and how to label them. Indicatively, below there is a list of what an adequate training program should include. Food allergy, foods and ingredients that cause allergies, pointing out the important consequences of the unintended presence of allergens in products. Preventive measures for avoiding the possible presence of allergens in all stages of the food supply chain. Personnel good hygiene practices and also best facilities design in terms of hygiene. Cleaning procedures, tools, equipment, food preparation areas. Handling of rework materials and waste management. Corrective actions in possible cross-contact situations. Consumer awareness, labeling, risk assessment in primary production, in disposal, in storage, in processing and management. National and European legislation on allergens.